Welcome back to the show, Coast to Coast Sports Running Back Rankings 2024. Drew and I have made our lists. We submitted it to the list maker. This is the average. This is what it came out to. Starting off with some of the best backups in the league. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I got him at 41.
I like Levi, not much to say.
Yeah, fall from grace from a few years ago. We got a couple of Denver Broncos at 40 and 39, Samaj P. Ryan at 40, and Javonte Williams at 39. Drew, which one of these guys, if either of them, are they going to break out for the Broncos this year?
I
They're
like
competing for
Samaje
first
Perine.
spot.
I like Perine a little bit more, but yeah, you're right, Levi. These are about the 40th and 39th best running back. I'm not going to split hairs between these two.
Yeah, the Broncos need to upgrade bad. 38, I have A.J. Dillon, definitely a good backup, fills in well when guys get hurt.
Yeah, I went to, I believe, Chicago University. Is a big running back. He has nice backup upside. Used to be behind Aaron Jones, and he's a good running back, but he's a little bit unconventional, a little bit bigger for most running backs, more of a Derrick Henry type build, but not as fast. I like AJ Dillon, but definitely outside of the top 32.
Yeah, I agree. 37, we have Zamir White, one of the lowest ranked starters in the league. You had him as your worst ranked starter in the league.
Yeah.
I need to see more from this guy.
Yeah, I only ranked the starters, so I had him as the worst starter, but I had him at 32. So you must have some backups ahead of him, Levi. I like some of his burst and stuff, but there's a reason why. He's a first year starter. He's going to split a lot of reps still, probably. We'll see what happens. But hey, I do think that he has the potential to climb up this list sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah, Gus Edwards at 36, another first time starter. He's filled in well with the Ravens, but definitely interesting to see the Chargers move on from Eckler to a guy like Gus Edwards.
Eckler was really slow, Levi. I don't know if you saw the viral clip of him running down that sideline, getting hawked by
Sure.
like a defensive end. There's a reason they went to the higher upside, more versatile, speedier Gus Edwards over Austin Eckler.
We had Ezekiel Elliott at 35. He is the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys, and I don't have him in my top 30. That just speaks for itself. He has really fallen off. Is he still a decent back? Sure he is, but he's just not the guy he used to be.
No, not at all. Zeke, he's a guy that you can give the ball to at the 1 or 2 yard line and you still feel fairly confident. But that burst that we fell in love with the combined size that Ezekiel Elliott brings to the table, that's what we really liked about him in his rookie and sophomore years. And then ever since then, it's been a slow fall off. He looks old. And for a running back, they age like milk. And very quickly, Ezekiel Elliott has fallen from the graces, and he's one of the worst starting running backs in the NFL.
Yeah. I got Tyler Algier at 34, the Falcons backup. He had a good season last year, despite being the second stringer to Bijan Robinson, former 1,000 yard rusher. I still like this guy a lot as a backup. I think he could start for a few teams in this league.
Yeah, I think so too. He has some burst. He's young. The problem is obviously Bijan is right there. So tough for him, but if he proves he can be a solid backup, maybe he earns a starting role in another team.
Yeah. Got Antonio Gibson at 33, another solid backup. He's with the Commanders, had a breakout season, scored like 15 touchdowns. And, he's good at what he does. He catches passes really well. He's actually a really good pass catching back. Good for fantasy. If you need a flex fantasy option, Antonio Gibson might help you out late in the season.
Yeah, I'm not a big Ramondre Stevenson guy, so I do think there's a chance that Antonio Gibson will be that number one back with New England. I like Gibson a lot. He didn't make my top 32 rankings. This is obviously the backup rankings, first of all, but I do like Antonio Gibson. There's a reason why he had that big season with the Commanders, and I think there's a potential chance that he kind of returns to that to some degree. So I like Antonio Gibson, what he brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. 32, Devin Singletary, the Giants starter. What a way to replace Saquon Barkley, right? You replace him with a guy who is, I hate to say washed, but Devin Singletary, he's pretty seasoned vet at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't say washed because he never really was that good, Levi, over there with the Buffalo
Yeah.
Bills. Look, we'll see what happens with Singletary. I don't hate him, but he's really undersized. He's more of a pass catching back. We'll have to see what Singletary can do.
We got Chuba Hubbard coming in at 31 for the Panthers. Again, just feels like he's not really a true starting caliber back. He's barely in that top, and he's not in the top 30. I feel like if you're not in the top 30, you're not really a true starter. But Chuba Hubbard, yeah, I mean, he's going to get the most reps for the Panthers this year. Um, Not a whole lot to say about him.
Yeah, I
He
believe I
kills
had him
the Seahawks,
higher.
though.
Yeah, I believe I had him higher than you, Levi.
Yeah,
Maybe
you
it's
did.
because of his name Chuba, but I do think he's a little bit better than the 31 ranking. I like his upside. He had big shoes to fill. You know, Obviously now he kind of has that starting back role sort of with Carolina. Not really. We'll have to see. The Panthers are a confusing team.
Yeah, agree. Zach Moss for the Bengals. Again, big shoes to fill. You lose Joe Mixon,
Yeah.
you replace him with Zach Moss, who's never been a starter before. So I'm interested to see what he does. Again, like the upside with Zach Moss, but there's not a ton to see, in my opinion, with Zach Moss. He's very fast though.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with Zach Moss. One of those guys I don't know much about in full transparency, but again, in a Bengals offense that's going to be cooking, I do think Zach Moss could have potential to be a back that we look at and say, we rank this guy as the 30th best back in the NFL at the start of the year. Now he's maybe top 16, top 15, somewhere around there. I could see that happening with Zach Moss. I'm excited to see what this guy can do with Cincinnati.
You got Rashad White at 29. It feels a little low for Rashad, but at the same time, he just hasn't done a whole lot. He
No.
he replaced Leonard Fournette and was pretty clearly worse than Leonard Fournette. So yeah, I hate to say the Buccaneers, they may need to find a new starting running back pretty soon.
Yeah, a lot of these back end running backs, there's really not much to say. They can all do the job. Look, there's the common phrase, not not a phrase, but a question that's asked, like, could an average guy just step into the NFL field and rush for a couple of yards with a good offensive line? And I'm gonna have to fall in the boat that says yes to that question. And I think that's because the running back position, in my opinion, if it's not the top end running backs, just simply aren't super valuable. All these guys are obviously super good, but the running backs 15 through 40 in the NFL, realistically, Levi, it doesn't make or break your season.
No, it does not.
So yeah, Rashad White, you could argue higher, but once again, I don't think it matters too much. But number 20, Najee Harris, that's interesting.
I think he has some upside. I think he does. You had him ranked higher than I did. But I couldn't get over his early season struggles last year with Pittsburgh. It felt like they couldn't run the ball at all.
Yeah, but his high draft pick from a few years back, he had an okay year before last. We'll have to see. I could predict a Najee Harris bounce back year, especially with Russell Wilson at the helm, at least for the start of the year. You know how much Russ likes and relies on running the football. I think Najee Harris could be a little bit of a workhorse back and surprise some people.
It's true. Got Jerome Ford at 27. Drew, you left Jerome off the rankings. I had to put him at 27 because I think his breakout last year with Nick Chubb out, I think this guy might be the best backup running back in the league. I mean, he is tremendous. The way that he carried that Browns offense for the last 10 weeks of the season.
Yeah, once again, I like Jerome Ford. But honestly, Levi wasn't paying too much attention to the Cleveland Browns towards the end of the year. I know he had a good last half with Chubb gone. We'll have to see what happens. Maybe he proves me wrong, and maybe he makes me watch the Browns a little bit more. We'll have to see.
Then coming in at 26, the Patriots. Ramondre Stevenson. So, yeah, not a huge gap in our rankings between Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. So, definitely might be an interesting question for head coach Jared Mayo, who he goes with. But Stevenson listed as the starter right now. Scored some touchdowns last year.
Yeah, he's not bad. A lot of my um, you know, opinions on these running backs, in all honesty, is fantasy football rankings. And I'm
Yeah,
sure a lot of people who are watching this as well. And Ramondre Stevenson is going in like the third round right now, and that's because of the Patriots offense and how they're going to run the football a lot. But with Antonio Gibson, it's going to be kind of a crowded backfield for a running back that, frankly, in Ramondre Stevenson, that I don't think is super good. So we'll have to see what happens. I would stay away from him if I was drafting. To give you guys any drafting advice, I would stay away from him. We'll have to see what he does. Maybe he proves me wrong, but 26 does feel about right.
DeAndre Swift at 25. New team for DeAndre Swift, and gonna
That's
have to
good.
see if he can really break out. I mean, he had some really good games with Philadelphia, but he
Yeah.
disappeared at the end of the season completely.
Yeah, he did. DeAndre Swift's always been a confusing back for me because I've always really liked him. Whenever I've turned on the TV, I've been like, yeah, I like this guy, especially with the Lions. He really jumped off the page to me. But now it's like he's with the Bears. It's kind of confusing. Is he an elite running back? Clearly not, but sometimes he is. Very interesting. DeAndre Swift, I'll be
Yeah,
watching closely in the 2024 season
some of the best highlights in the league, but you got to be more consistent.
for sure. Austin
24 got
Eckler.
Austin Eckler, Commanders. He's listed as the backup right now, which is interesting, but
Yeah,
he needs to bounce back.
he's slow, he's old, and that's crazy for a guy that I don't even know if he's on the other side of 30 yet.
I mean,
But
last year he was a first round pick in fantasy consensus.
yeah, it's crazy the fall off in just 1 year of football. But you see that a lot with running backs, Levi. And unfortunately, that's kind of happened to Austin Eckler. Sometimes, just a little bit too much mileage on the old car and it breaks down. And with running backs, it happens a lot earlier than when compared to a quarterback, for example, where Tom Brady can play till he's 40 some odd years. Austin Eckler, even though he's only what? I don't again, once again, I don't know if he's 30 or not, but he looked a lot slower and you don't need to be a professional NFL scout to see that. 23, James Conner.
Yeah, I feel like he always flies under the radar. He usually kicks things into gear towards the end of the season, which is interesting. He's been a couple of times now for me in fantasy. I picked him up like week 11 or 12, and he's really popped off towards the end. But I feel like he always starts a little bit slow.
Yeah, he does. But it is annoying to play those pesky Cardinals later in the season, and it feels like James Conner kind of runs all over us. So we'll have to see. 23 does seem a little low though, Levi.
Yeah, I think you had him a bit higher than I did. You got Brian Robinson Jr., the other Commanders running back at 22. Again, he's listed in front of Eckler. I think it's going to be a very much a split backfield for them this year, but one of the better backfield duos and for our rankings at least. But if Eckler falls off, Brian Robinson's going to have to carry a lot of the load.
Yeah, I do think it'll be a split backfield, Levi. I like Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler, who's going to be able to provide some of that veteran leadership. Should be a pretty dynamic duo there. So excited to see what the Commanders bring because really they don't bring much else to the table.
No, they do not. And David Montgomery, again, part of a good split backfield. He's the backup running back for the Lions, and last year he rushed for over 1,000 yards. I mean, David Montgomery, really, really good running back to have. He could start for about 12 teams in this league without a question, I think. I had him
Yeah.
higher than you did, Drew, as well.
Yeah, without a question. And I'm putting him at 21, maybe a little bit unfair, but it's because of Jahmyr Gibbs, who he has to
Yeah,
share the backfield with. And they spent such a high draft pick a couple of years ago on Gibbs. They're going to feed him the ball. David Montgomery is in a tough spot because you're right, Levi. About half the league, he probably starts. And now, his target share or whatever, his rushing share, I don't really know what you call it for a running back,
yeah,
is going to be probably under 20%. So it's going to be interesting to see what David Montgomery brings to the table. His stats at the end of 2024 might not look super impressive, but what I do think he's going to bring an immense talent, and some teams going to see that. And I think in 2025, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery could be on a new team as a starter. So yeah, I
yeah.
like the 21 ranking.
And then the last backup we have here, Devon Achane, another
Mhm.
really, really solid backup to have. I mean, he broke out, had those three incredible fantasy games
Yeah.
in like weeks 3, 4, and 5 last year, and then kind of just hung around for the rest of the season as their running back too. But again, if for the Dolphins especially, a team that relies so much on speed, and he is so
He's
fast,
fast. Might be the only guy faster than Tyreek on that team.
he might be. Number 19, James Cook, another really fast running back. James Cook hasn't really done what we thought he was going to do. We thought he was going to really be a top 10 running back, and he still has time to develop into that. So far, I think he's in the top 20, but not firmly in that top 20 yet. He's right. He's just on the outside there.
Yeah, and unfortunately for James Cook, it's a crowded backfield, and you know why? It's because the
Josh
RB1 is Josh Allen.
Yeah,
So James Cook, unfortunately, the Bills just don't really they don't run the ball in a traditional sense. So James Cook is going to have to, really grind out the season, find his own ways to be productive, continue to be a good pass blocker. And James Cook, I do think top 20 is right about where I'd had him. He could fall on the other side of 20 for me as well.
yeah. I think we
This
got
is a
Jameer
little low
Gibbs
for
at
me. It's a
18.
little low for me.
Yeah, I had Jameer Gibbs at 21. I think you had him at 14. But Jameer Gibbs, personally, I just need to see a little bit more. He had some really good games, and he also had some games when he disappeared. And I need to see some more consistency from him before I'm going to rank him higher. But I know he's a fantasy. People are in love with him this year in fantasy. He's going first round in some mocks that I'm seeing. So
Yeah, and for a good reason. Jameer Gibbs is an elite talent that, there's a reason why the Lions, who had a lot of holes to fill, reached and grabbed him a couple of years ago. And he's in an offense that's really going to allow him to flourish. So I think Jameer
yeah,
Gibbs, A, for fantasy is going to be super good, but B, just for value in the NFL and in production, I think Jameer Gibbs has at least an 1,000-yard rushing season incoming. I see him averaging about, a half to a touchdown a game, somewhere in that range. I like Jameer Gibbs a lot. Montgomery's also in that backfield, like we mentioned. That'll be a good, kind of two-head sword. Wow, double-edged sword, two-head monster type thing going on. So yeah,
yeah.
I like Jameer Gibbs.
17, we got Kyron Williams of the Rams, another breakout fantasy star from last year.
Yeah,
I'm very interested to see if he can actually replicate what he did last year for the Rams. Personally, I think it might be a flash in the pan, but I do respect it. He carried my fantasy team into the playoffs and into a fantasy victory, actually, for one of my leagues. So,
nice.
I'm happy for him what he did last year, but I I don't really buy it. I feel like the Rams always have 1 year wonders at running back.
Yeah, he might be a one-year wonder, Levi, but if that one-year wonder was getting you a playoff win, then hey, that's pretty damn good because you're not the best fantasy player I've met. But
True.
Kyron Williams, he's super solid. So we'll have to see. He's kind of young, very young actually, and maybe another year he's gonna be. I don't know, Levi. Do you consider Kyron Williams' ceiling last year, or do you think there's another gear potentially?
There could be another Garrett. Like you said, he's young. He does have room to grow. I just see so many Rams running backs that fade within a year or two of when they break out. So
Yeah, I know what you mean. Now we're getting into
Rams
the top
running backs scare
16.
me away.
Top
What's that?
16.
Yeah, top 16, the top half. Tony Pollard at 16. He was supposed to be a top 10 guy last year. People were drafting him in the first round of
Yeah.
fantasy. He was just about an average running back last year for Dallas. And, I think for the Tennessee Titans, he is a downgrade from Derrick Henry. I'm not sure what he's going to be able to do for them.
Yeah, Tony Pollard, he's flashy for sure, but he lacks some of that workhorse, qualities that really make an elite running back. That's why
Yeah.
it's at 16.
Look at Isaiah Pacheco at 15, a guy who, for what he does, I think he scored so many touchdowns last year. It's easy to say, wow, maybe we put him a little bit too low. At the same time, Patrick Mahomes is running that offense, so everyone's going to score a lot of touchdowns. But I still think Isaiah Pacheco had a really nice season, and he really has contributed to back Super Bowl rings for that Kansas City Chiefs offense.
Yeah, and credit to Pacheco. What he's really good at is he's really good at catching the football. And,
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes plays right into that. He's super good in that system. A guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was last on this list, for a lot of teams might be a more valuable back than Isaiah Pacheco. But for the Kansas City Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco fills his role perfectly. And that matters, is filling your
Yeah.
role perfectly and doing what your team needs them to do. And Isaiah Pacheco does that beautifully. That's why he's top 15.
Josh Jacobs, newly on the Green Bay Packers, once was a top 5 running back. I still have him at 14. I think he can get back into the top 10, but he's got to bounce back. Last year wasn't great, and he did get hurt. So interested to see what he's going to do.
Yeah, we'll have to see. It's always that, the running back way it goes is you're right here, rookie year, and then sophomore, junior year, the second, third year, usually when you start to plateau almost, not Christian
Yeah.
McCaffrey, but there's a reason why he's not 14. Is Josh Jacobs falling off the cliff? Because the cliff comes fast for running backs. You see that
Yes.
last year with Austin Eckler. You might see that this year with Josh Jacobs. But for right now, you have to appreciate and respect the longevity that Josh Jacobs has provided. That's why he's 14. But very easily, I could see him going 27 or whatever Austin Eckler was next year.
Yeah.
Same
Joe
thing with
Mixon at
Mixon.
13.
Same thing with
Again,
Mixon.
yeah.
Yeah,
Same thing. Veteran running backs, it's a fickle sport and things happen quickly.
very quickly. And Joe Mixon, last year did a lot for the Bengals, and people still are disrespecting him.
Yep.
Now he's with the Texans. We'll have to see what he does. I think Mixon's personally a little bit under respected, but hey, I don't think I put Mixon any higher than this either. So we'll
No.
have to see what happens.
Raheem Mostert at 12. This is the guy that I think we might have had the most discretion on. I had Raheem Mostert at, I believe, number 8. Drew, you had him at like 20. And there's only one other guy who we disagreed on as far as top 10. We had 8 of the same top 10. He was one of the 2 that we disagreed on. But I maybe I am too bought in. I will say Raheem Mostert had a really good season last year, and he may very well be a one year wonder. He scored 18 touchdowns last year. Um, who knows if you can replicate that? Who
I
knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I might
He's
have
he is
undervalued
30
him a
years
little
old,
bit.
so I
Yeah.
understand why you have reservations.
It's the old running backs that really scare me. They do. And I
Yeah,
think I probably ranked Devin Achane above him.
yeah, I think you did.
So, hey, I like the youth and the speed that he provides. That Raheem Mostert, obviously one of the fastest backs in the NFL, still even at age 30. But it is going to be interesting to see, can Raheem Mostert continue to keep up with the youth? Is it going to be like the car scene where, Lightning McQueen is slowly passed up by all the faster, newer cars and Raheem Mostert is left in the dust? Or can Raheem Mostert kind of fend off the storm for at least one more year? We'll have to see. Will me or Levi be right? I don't know. I don't know, man. We'll have to see.
We got Aaron Jones at 11, just missing out on the top 10. This is the other guy that we disagreed about. I believe you had him at 11 and I had him at 10. So we were very close, but that was the only other top 10 disagreement we had. Aaron Jones, though, yeah, I still think he's a good running back, but again, some injuries last year. When he was healthy, he was good. He's got
Yeah.
to stay on the field, though.
He does. He has to stay on the field. Once again, we've talked about it once. I'll say it again. Better running backs. We'll have to see, but I do like Aaron Jones a lot.
Yeah,
Top 10,
here we go. Kenneth Walker,
29.
Seattle Seahawks, taking out the top 10. I like Kenneth Walker a lot. I think
Yeah.
last year I had him, I think at 6. I've dropped him a few spots this year, but still think he's a top 10 running back. Still think that he can absolutely run.
Yeah, Kenneth Walker, if he's, is on the field and is producing and everything is going right, is one of the best running backs in the NFL. Super dynamic. Can pass catch, is one of the most shifty running backs in the whole league
Yep.
and is really hitting his prime. This is going to be his third year in the NFL, I believe it is. And that's really when you see running backs kind of hit their peak. So I think Kenneth Walker is due for a huge season, especially with Geno Smith still at the helm. We'll have to see just how much Ryan Grubb uses him. But, last year you can point to, the Huskies offense and be like, yeah, they threw the ball a lot. Maybe K9 won't get as much production. But if you look at Ryan Grubb historically, he actually really likes to run the ball. It just happens to be that there was 3 NFL wide receivers and Michael Penix. Like, what else is he gonna do? Obviously, he's gonna throw the ball last year, but in the years prior, he really favored the running game. So I think Kenneth Walker is gonna get a lot of touches, and I think he's gonna be one of the best backs in the NFL. Just the other 9 guys, I do think going into this year do deserve to be ahead of him.
Yeah.
And those 9 guys are,
Travis Etienne at number 9 for the Jags. I was so high on Etienne last year, took him in the first round for one of my fantasy leagues, and he really kind of disappointed. But I think both of us had him in the top 10, and that is a testament to our faith in a guy like Etienne to bounce back. He's young, he's talented, he has everything it takes to be one of the top backs in this league.
he has to be good, right? Like that's kind of my vibe with ETN. Like like there's no way this guy can't be good. So we'll have to see if he lives up
Yeah.
to it.
And Derrick Henry, still in the top
The
10. We both
king.
agree. King Henry, he may not be the best running back in the league anymore, but I still think he has so powerful. He
Yeah.
has that beast mode type of a vibe to him where he can just get through bodies. He breaks tackles like nobody else does.
Yeah, I think as far as running backs go, I think he's going to age better than most guys because his game isn't always necessarily reliant on his speed. It's reliant on him being super strong, and ugh, that can continue to play into your late 30s is that strength. So I think that Derrick Henry will be all right with the Ravens. The thing that scares me is that the Ravens kind of just never have an elite running back. A
Um,
lot of it's because of Lamar Jackson, but we'll have to see if Derrick Henry changes things in Baltimore.
Yeah, Brees Hall at 7, another youngster, another guy who maybe underperformed to expectations last year. He still had a good season last year, don't get me wrong, but it felt like he kind of underperformed in terms of we thought he could potentially be a top three back, and he wasn't last year. But again, we rewarded him. We both rewarded him with spots in our top 10 because we both believe that in the talent, you have to believe in the talent. With some of these guys, the talent is so clearly there that no matter what happens, you have to believe in it.
You do. And a couple years ago, was it Brees Hall that tore his ACL a couple years ago, the rookie year?
He did his rookie
Yeah.
year.
And then kind of bounces back next year, but it's usually 2 years after the ACL where you really feel 100%. So I think Brees Hall, maybe that same thing will happen. I'm hoping for it. I'm rooting for the kid, and I think Brees Hall is going to be pretty good, especially with Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform.
Alvin Kamara at 6. Um, Kamara again kind of disappointed last year, but he
We have a
did suffer from
disagreement on
some
this, no?
injuries. Yeah, we did disagree about this. I had him. I think you had him at maybe somewhere around 10 or 11.
Yeah.
I had him at number 4.
Mhm.
So I had Alvin Kamara very high, and that's a testament to I believe in what he's done in the past few seasons. He definitely had a down year last year, so I'm not gonna say he did not. But I believe that the body of work he put up from 2018 to 2022 was a top three running back, and I still think he has more left in him.
Yeah, the problem is we're not in 2018 anymore, Levi, so we'll have to see what Alvin Kamara can do. I don't know. It's just once again, it's the veteran running back. When will they fall off a cliff? It's kind of hard to predict. You don't always want to, catch the falling knife, as they say in the stock market terms. Sometimes you got to jump off the ship a little bit earlier than when the stock crashes.
True.
This might be the year where AK-41 crashes, or he could be another top five running back. We'll have to see.
Nick Chubb at 5, and I thought this was interesting. So you and I both ranked Nick Chubb at number 6, I believe. Is that you have your list?
I can get it up, but I'm
Something
screen
like that.
sharing. Yeah,
We're going quick. We're moving quick, but I believe
yeah,
we both had him at 6, and that's interesting to me because he didn't play all but 2 games last season. But we both have so much faith in Nick Chubb that we both think that he's going to be a top 6 running back this year after suffering an ACL last year in week 2. If that doesn't tell you, I mean, he has earned so much respect from us.
yeah.
But he has. I mean, he's been so good before.
No, Chubb is super good. He's one of my favorite players, just straight up in the league. So consistent when he's on the field. I think he's got at least one more good year in him.
Yeah.
JT.
And Taylor at 4. I feel like I'm saying the same thing about all these guys. Kind of underperformed a little bit last year, but still the talent is
Yeah,
so clearly there for Jonathan
the
Taylor.
star factor kind of getting to us, Levi, maybe a little
He,
bit.
he had about a 4 game stretch though last season when he was just absolutely carrying the
Yeah,
Colts, but he was also, he was also not entirely healthy last year. He suffered some injuries as well.
sure he was. He was the best back. He was going number one overall in all the fantasy mock drafts last year. Now he's fading into like the late second round, and that's for a reason. But Jonathan Taylor, at his peak, still one of the best running backs in the NFL. He deserves to be number four. Top three. Here we go.
And
Bijan.
these three we had completely in agreement. Bijan at 3.
Dynamic, electric. When the ball's in his hands, you see why they drafted him so high. And with an Atlanta Falcons offense, where I forget the offensive coordinator's name, but he was asked, he said, look, he was asked, what are you going to do differently this year? He said, my main objective is to get Bijan the ball in the most creative and most ways possible.
Good, good.
So,
Because I mean, there are some cases where the numbers lie. If you look at the numbers, Bijan's not a top 10 running back last year. If
no,
you look at the tape, he might have been the best.
yeah,
He is so good, but they just didn't give him the ball for like the first 10
no.
games of the season. And that might have been the reason why the Falcons didn't win that division.
It's true. That's how big of a difference maker Bijan is. And that's rare for a running back to be the difference maker in a playoff team or not. That's
Yeah.
rare.
Saquon at two. And again, a guy who we are rewarding him with a ton of faith, putting him at number two, because there are some real question marks about Saquon in
True.
Philadelphia.
I've seen a bunch of lists have him fall outside the top five. I've seen one list that has him at 11. So Saquon
Wow.
Barkley at two for us really does, like you say, show the faith we have in Saquon. But I believe in Saquon Barkley. Once again, you don't want to be catching the falling knife, but I don't think that's fallen this year. I think
This is
Saquon
his last
Barkley,
chance for me that I'm really going to believe.
yeah, I think so too. But Saquon Barkley is just that good where I'm giving him one more year. So I'm with you,
Yeah,
Levi. Top
I
two
agree.
running back in the NFL. He's super talented. We'll have to see if he can live up to his name, though. All right, drumroll please. 1 minute left in the meeting, and our number one pick,
Christian
CMC.
McCaffrey. It's obvious. I mean, it's almost sad to rank these because everybody else is kind of interchangeable. There's a lot of guys who
Yeah,
had good years, bad years
there
last
is.
year, up and down. CMC is so firmly at the top though for me, and I'm sure for you as well, right?
Yeah, not only can he run the ball, he can catch the ball, he can block. Look, you see him throwing the football in this very picture. I mean, he can do it all on the football field. CMC at one is the only right answer.
I agree. And with that, we're going to wrap this thing up. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Coast to Coast Sports. We got tight end rankings coming out as well, wide receiver rankings probably tomorrow, and then quarterbacks. So stick around for all that. Subscribe to the channel if you want more. See you guys in the next one.
See you guys.
Good stuff.